Grady Powell, host of Forged in Fire.
Kyle Mann.
I'm Jay Warner Wallace.
Kira Davis.
It's Ben Adams.
Hey, this is Dave Baker.
Carrie Pomeroli.
This is Mike Rhyner.
This is Ethan Nicole.
This is Leah Morgan.
It's Graham Parker, the 5th GP, and this is why you should never.
How I got suckered in.
I'm so embarrassed that I'm here.
You're wasting your time. You got better things to do.
Never listen.
Those darling, yummy Reverend and the Reprobate.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Reverend and the Reprobate. I'm Lucas Pinkert, an actual Reverend, and here with me is a man who
is turning down his microphone.
is turning down his microphone and his headphones right now.
I'm turning my headphones.
It's the big man, not turning himself up in his headphones. He's got 2 fries. His big damn gives him.
2 fries, one for the one for the car, one for the house.
Yep, that's how.
One
That's how
for
you got to get your fries.
One for my thighs.
So, Dan, what's going on, buddy?
You always ask us every week, and
Yeah,
I'm
I do.
always dumbstruck
This
by
is
what's going on.
Yeah.
What's going on?
What's going on?
We just went to our first high school football game in Keller, where my son was playing in the middle school band up in the bleachers, watching the marching band.
Okay, right on.
Yeah, the marching band was doing their routine, and they were observing what they're going to be doing soon.
Wow.
Yeah, and at the very end of it, Kale said, "I don't think I want to do that."
It seems like a lot of walking, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
it seems like a lot of work.
Yeah.
I mean, he loves playing a saxophone, but yeah,
Right.
that's what's going on.
But he
in our
doesn't want to
world.
do. He wants to be in sit-down band, not in marching band.
I think he didn't like it because it was like 9:30, and there were 9 million people out at that time on Friday, and he was
Okay,
just,
so he's
he was
adopted
he was
your
doing my
sleep schedule.
He's doing my bits of, and I agreed. This is ridiculous.
But that could
In
be
fact-
your life
in fact,
coming
this
up.
Friday. He's going back, and he's got a high school student that's being assigned to him as a mentor or something.
As a mentat.
And I had questions of, when are we picking him up? Because I don't like this idea. I want to come home on Friday and we're done.
And
That's not
may
gonna happen.
Well, the good news about it would be that if he does play in band in high school, you wouldn't have to pick him up on Friday.
Why?
Well, because they just ride the bus to the game.
Oh, yeah. We would still have to pick him up from school later that night. But
No, he's got friends in marching band. They can drive.
I like that. That's a good.
Yeah,
one.
see?
You know, the other
This
good
just
the other
opens
good
up
news,
your Friday night.
The other
you
good-
didn't see Mom and I in the stands?
We're pretty far up there. Yeah. Although he said he saw me from the other side of the field.
Whatever.
Because, I mean, I'm friggin' tall and
he's-
big, and I'm picky about my seats.
Look, I don't want to call your
me.
kid a liar, so I'm just going to say he's full of it.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
for
he
sure.
didn't.
But the other good news, some other good news.
Some other
This
good
just
news.
Some other good news.
Smother it.
About being out late at night or later on
Yeah,
Friday.
okay, yeah,
is
yeah.
we get to listen to a new radio show.
We do
A new
get to
radio
listen
station.
to a new radio station. Our good friends, Mike Rhyner and the sweetness of Tweet Grubes, Michael Gruber, have started a brand new radio station with local radio host Ben and Skin, with the genius that is Mike Soroy and the lovely Julie Dobbs, a few other names in there that the Dallas radio folks might be familiar with. And I want to say, if you are not a person in the DFW area and you don't know what we're talking about, because we got listeners all over the globe that listen to our sweet little show, there is this huge soap opera in DFW radio that's going on right now that is absolutely insane.
That's a great way to describe it.
Yeah, and it centers around one of our most favorite people in broadcasting. It is it's Mike Rhyner who's got the target on his back.
Who is definitely, I think you undersold it a little bit.
Yeah.
One of our most, he's top.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I mean, he's a Texas Radio Hall of Famer. He has been on, umpteen different radio stations.
He's baseball, which is a term that
Oh,
we use
that
very,
I'm
very
so
carefully.
uncomfortable with.
Yeah, very carefully.
Yeah.
With all due respect, it's just a term of how important he is to baseball.
Yeah, well, we can
edit this out.
We are firmly
You can always say,
going
"No,
to
we're
put
keeping it."
ourselves in the camp of Glen Nation.
Yeah.
As of today. And so a lot of what we're talking about today, and this is kind of we don't have an interview today, we just have some thoughts we want to get off of our chest, because not that they need it, but I think our friends have not gotten a fully fair shake in a lot of the media and in a lot of the, I guess, really in a lot of the scuttlebutt that has to do with social media as it surrounds this new endeavor 97.1.
There are
The
several
Freak.
challenges, and I think we should lay those out.
Yeah. So quick backstory.
A couple day old right now.
Yeah. So right now the station's been on the air. This is day 3 as we're recording this. And the quick backstory is this. In the early 90s, Mike Rhyner started a radio station called The Ticket. Now, if you were to look at anything that I've put out on social media or anything, there has always been this tagline, this description, everything I put out from my Twitter profile to my Facebook. Whenever I started a personal YouTube channel, when I was writing blogs for other people, one of the things that was in the description was always that I was an avid listener of America's favorite radio station, Sports Radio 96.7 and 1310, The Ticket. It's always been like that. That's something I've done from the very beginning of my sort of social media presence, is that because it was a huge part of the identity of a lot of people in DFW. There was this band of people that listened to this radio station. Mike started that radio station, and it's had several iterations over the course of the last 27, 28 years, somewhere in there. In January 2020, Mike retires from that station.
Man, what timing, too.
In just the most incredible fashion.
Is it? I feel like something bad's coming. I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, he did it like just right before the pandemic hit. It's so brilliant. Like, he is the Kenny Rogers.
I don't know what's going to happen, but
he's the Kenny Rogers of radio, because he knew when to fold them.
Got a feeling it's going to be ridiculous.
Yeah. So he steps away, and he has this incredible retirement video that has him walking down this impossibly long hallway at the end of it as he walks away. Now, everything that happens kind of in this moment when Mike retires is a shock to not just the guys at the station, but all of the listeners. I mean, Mike Rhyner is the face of The Ticket. He has been the voice
we both
of my childhood and now into my adulthood.
That's all I was going to say is both of us. And I
thousands and thousands of hours of time logged listening to this guy.
And I don't care about sports, to be clear. I don't care.
No, you don't.
But I listened to The Ticket because it was the best. It was great.
It was.
The personalities, there's a ton of great bits, very funny. And they actually made sports kind of interesting. I liked hearing they explained it well. It was funny. They gave some interesting detail. The banter was great.
Yeah. So to not, we don't want to dive too much into the backstory because we want to get to what's happening right now. There are 3 different iterations of the show that Mike was on The Ticket. The first was just Mike and his co-host Greg Williams.
The Hammer.
In 2008, Greg left the show, and Mike had some guest hosts that were a part of it.
All Greg's leaving,
and then
eventually.
Did your dad leave? Okay, so anyway, so Greg is no longer with the show after 2008, and then one of the guys who was the kind of the third personality on the show ends up stepping into the role, co-hosting with Mike on this show, The Hardline, and now. The most recent iteration doesn't have Mike. It doesn't have Greg. I don't know why they're keeping the show name because it's not the Hardline anymore. But that's for other people to decide and for them to talk about branding and all that. It's like, so years and years and years ago, we went and saw. We were playing at Billy Bob's, which is a honky tonk in Fort Worth. We were playing there, and the headliner that night was Foghat. Now, Foghat is a classic rock band. They've got a handful of hits. But when Foghat came out, it was a bunch of guys that were our age, and then a guy that was like just had to be wheeled to the drum set in order to play. It was only one guy that was the original member of Foghat, and the rest of them were a bunch of hired musicians. Yeah. And so that is essentially what I feel like has happened specifically with Mike's former show, is that it's the same thing that happens with all of these old bands, is that it's other people that are glomming onto the greatness of the men who started it and really made the hits.
It's the analogy that Vision gave, where with the old ship, if you replace everything.
Yeah, with Theseus's ship.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. And so anyway, that said, in
Theseus ship. It's Vision's story.
Yeah, Vision's story
from the
Theseus'
Marvel
ship.
movies.
Yeah. So in late 2019, we actually have a conversation because that's when we stopped listening to The Ticket. And one of the reasons that we stopped listening was because we felt like something was amiss, and it was mainly having to do with the way that the younger guys that were on the show were treating Mike. Mm-hmm. Like they had already, like all of the jokes on the show started to be about Mike's age. Anytime Mike made a mistake, it was this. And then it became one of those things where he, for a while.
That's what we like so much about Grubes.
Yeah.
Grubes always had his back.
Yeah, Grubes had his back. Dan McDowell always had it. Donovan, who is,
Donovan Lewis.
I really think that Dan, Donovan, and George, that is like those are the guys that are the serious talent on that station right now.
I thought you were about to throw out a nice HSO.
No.
Donovan.
I think those guys are the serious talents on that station right now. They're incredible at what they do. All of that said, over the course of the last several months of 2019, both of us just stopped listening because of that. I was like, I just feel like when we listen to like this show in particular, that it just turns into a bunch of guys like trying to make jokes about Mike or tell us their political opinions.
And their audience loves Mike.
Yeah. And then in early 2020, I would occasionally like flip over on the dial to The Ticket, and all it became between the time Mike left and when the pandemic started was political talk. And I bet I've listened to the station, which to put this into perspective, a station that I listened to literally like religiously, like 6 to 7 hours a day. It was on all the time.
I remember when we first started hanging out that you had said, I leave, you record all of it and you listen to it at night.
Yeah.
While you're sleeping, you want to listen to every second.
I didn't want to miss anything.
You would re-listen
to all of it. And there are other like people that do that. Like there's a group called the Unticket that their whole thing that they do is that they chronicle this radio station. So it's got this huge, it's not even a cult following. It is like a rabid group of people that love it. And it's grown internationally. It's a huge thing. If you were to look at like Wonder Radio back when it was around, like they were the #1 rated station whenever online broadcasting was.
Oneater radio?
Huh?
The Oneaters?
The Oneaters? No, Wonder.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so
just ignore that.
It was this huge. I can't now. It was this huge thing, and long story short, that's what it kind of turned into especially whenever sports devolved, it became like this Politico talk station. Yeah,
isn't it already pretty devolved?
Yeah,
de-evolved.
Yeah. But I'm thinking like
they don't talk; they just grunt and push on each other.
When the pandemic hit and
sports is stupid.
Stuff started to shut down, right? That there was no, and everything started to kind of put, when the pandemic put the world on hold, the station really became a lot of like Politico talk. But it was just
I get what you're saying.
Brutal.
They started moving away from real sports and focusing and moving to politics.
It was pretty rough whenever everything changed. So fast forward a little bit to where we're at today. Mike's retired. He's been retired for a couple of years. He is a guy who has, for I don't know, the last 2 years just kind of done whatever he's wanted to do. And in his doing whatever he wanted to do
/ writing about his NDA.
Yeah, he
non-competing
came on our show multiple times. He was on the shows of several other people who had podcasts.
We got him to read Tolkien.
All kinds of stuff. Yeah.
And G.K. Chesterton.
We did, and it was
his legendary award-winning voice.
Yeah,
read The Hobbit.
It was a blast. He helped us interview Lynn
Go check
Ulbrich.
it out if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, he helped us interview Lynn Ulbrich, who
Which
was
is a passion of his for a long time.
Absolutely,
Ross Ulbricht,
the mother of the Dread Pirate Roberts, and everything that was going on there. And so,
#free Ross.
Hashtag Glen Nation. So, over the course of the last couple of months, he has been planning with some old friends of his in order to start this new station, 97.1 The Freak, and he is actually going into a time slot where he's in competition with his old show. The Hard Time. So when all of this begins to like be rumored, we immediately start to get excited, as do several people in the DFW area, because we want to hear Mike back online.
Quick note. I told someone at work about Mike Rhyner being back, and she started crying.
Yeah, it's exciting. Like the guy's great. So we tune in Monday at 3:00 as soon as his show goes on the air. And one of the first things that we hear is them telling the story of 97.1. It's a legendary radio station in Dallas. It's been around for decades.
Mandatory Metallica. I am gonna miss that.
Yeah, there's some certain things that I'm gonna miss.
I hope they keep that.
I doubt it, but
keep it.
Yeah. So anyway, Mike comes on, talks a little bit about the station, what they're aiming to do, brings on his co-host Mike Soroy, and introduces a bunch of names that we're really familiar with from the ticket. But these were all people at the ticket that could not get full-time gigs because the talent pool there is so solidified. And one of the things, we'll get to it later, because remind me to talk about the tier system at the ticket, because we always thought that it was kind of a joke, but it seems like there's more of a reality to it that's entrenched in it than what we considered at the beginning. So anyway, there's Mike Soroy, who just recently left because the contract negotiations were up and they weren't going to do anything with him as a pay bump because they didn't consider him part of the talent pool of the ticket, that he was just a producer, even though the guy hustled day in and day out. Our good friend Tweet Grubes, who's been on this show, Michael Gruber, a few times, left in order to go work with the Stars and the Rangers and Fox Sports and Bally Sports, and was having to hustle to work nights and weekends and holidays and do internet shows and all these things to make ends meet, but it was still better than how management at the station had treated him. That brings us back to Mike and his retirement, because we aren't the only ones. There was a lot of talk on Twitter and on social media at the time in the ticket Facebook groups of why are these guys being why all of a sudden do these guys have an attitude with Mike? And it was all right before he left. In the last 2 years, Mike has done stuff with us. He's done stuff with other podcasts. He has his own podcast called Your Dark Companion, which is just unbelievable.
He had Troy Aikman on.
Troy Aikman was on his podcast. One of the drummers for Ray Charles was on there and just talked about touring stories and all kinds of stuff. He's had Dale Hansen on a few times. It's just been incredible what that guy's done just in his free time. From what we can tell, and the story that he's told, somewhere over the course of the last few months.
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
Sports is dumb. Troy Aikman is cool.
Yeah, Troy Aikman's awesome.
Troy Aikman's cool.
Right. So over the course of the last few months,
it's a hot sports opinion.
There was some talk about reformatting 97.1 The Eagle. Ben and Sken, the guys that were doing the afternoon show, were trying to round up some investors and do some things. And they called Mike. Mike's always been really clear about one thing, and that is, if you want me to do something, you let me know.
Yeah.
We got Mike on the show not because he listened to our show and thought we were so fantastic.
Yeah.
This is a ridiculous statement. But because we reached out and we said, hey, we'd love to have you on. You've been a big part of it. And he's come on. We've texted. Mike and I have gone out to lunch. It's one of the most amazing and surreal experiences that we've had.
Literally
since
meeting
we've
your
done this.
hero and not getting disappointed.
Yeah, not getting disappointed at all.
I'm not trying to put more pressure on Mike, but
the only thing about Mike is that
guy.
he wanted his steak medium well.
Yeah.
That was the only thing about Mike that's been just slightly disappointing.
He gets a pass.
Yeah, but for sure.
Medium well.
Medium well.
Let's
let's just let it be.
Yeah. You can. Fine.
Yeah.
Whatever.
That's right. Anyway, so he's been a great guy.
That'd make a good lightning round question or a
how do you like your
controlled
steak? So, but he's been a great friend.
Every answer is wrong.
Over the course of the last
rare.
Over the course of the last really year and a half.
Go ahead.
Right? So he gets contacted by Ben and Skin. They're like, hey, we're trying to put this together. Would you be interested in doing it? They talked to him. He has been very clear whenever he retired and other guys interviewed him, when he had come back on the station to talk with the guys in the hang zone and all these other things. Anytime you boys want me to do something, I'll do it. Mm-hmm. I'll be there.
I can hear his voice doing that too.
Yeah, and we've
you're
heard
ready,
it.
You let me know.
Yeah, anytime you guys want anything, you just let me know.
I'll be there.
And that's the same thing that he said to us.
Yeah.
And so we've let him know.
And he's come back several times.
We've let him know on every occasion where we're like, hey, we've got a blank spot coming up in a month. What do you want to do? And we're like, do you think
he's been
Michael
on
wanna
3
do it?
times.
He's been on 3 different times.
There was a live spot Lynn.
He was Lynn Ulbricht, and we've
Ulbricht.
interviewed him twice on his own.
Yep.
So that said, he has stuck to this point of, if you want me around, you contact me. That's exactly what
he likes having fun.
But that's what Ben and Skin did. Yeah. Ben and Skin contacted him, and he was ready.
Good move, guys.
He was ready to do this. He was ready to jump in and help his buddies start something, because he saw an opportunity to get Grubes back in the game. He saw an opportunity to help Mike Soroy and Julie show their talents.
And I'm sure, he said this over and over. He loves it. He loves radio.
Yeah, that this is, he just wants to do something that's fun. So I think it's so cool that he went out and did this, risking. There's a lot on the line for him, and
it's a lot of work too. Starting a new station. The station's not new, but they're
after retirement,
it.
right? The last thing you want to do whenever you're just like sitting at home playing with the dogs and the housefrau is to be like, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to go back to work. But
hold on. If we were to speculate wildly, what do you think some of the things he did at home are?
I'm not going to speculate wildly about any of that stuff.
Do you think gardening was one?
He worked with his cover band.
Yep.
And he did the podcast, and he stayed up late and woke up late. That's what I think he did.
Yeah.
That's as far as I'm willing to speculate about Reiner's time.
That's fair.
So all of that to say that, there was this opportunity for him to come and to help out some people that were really talented and just were unable to move up in his time at the Ticket. And since then, what's caused this soap opera to happen is the response from his former station. Now, he did mention on day one that there was a time where Ben and Skin, the two guys that really kind of spearheaded this thing and brought Mike on board, that Jeff Skin Wade, ended up having to do some chemo treatments, and Mike went on their show because Ben called him. Again, you'll see that this is thematic throughout this thing, is that Mike's MO doesn't change. Ben calls him and says, hey, will you co-host the show with me? He's like, absolutely. I'm always willing to help out a friend in need. Let us be super, super clear. We've said a couple of times, oh, they're good friends. They're not. That is an exaggeration. That is such hyperbole. If we were to speak honestly about what our relationship is like, Mike and Michael Gruber are very gracious to us.
Yeah.
And we are friendly with them. To say that there is much more to that relationship is overselling it. They have paid a lot of attention to our little show and been really kind to us in the process when they didn't have to be. And you know what? Getting to hang out with them, getting to have them on the show has been a blast. But we're not at a point in that relationship where we're like, hey, you know what? Let's go to the baseball game. Who wants to come? Yeah. Or when we go up to Denton Cigar Co. or something like that, they're not the guys that we're typically calling, because
we
the
have
likelihood
tried.
We have tried. All that to say that we are tertiary people
always gracious.
In their
you nailed it.
in their
You
area
nailed
of influence, and they have completely been kind and gracious and
Cool,
helped
gracious,
us
good
out
content.
when they didn't have to.
Yeah.
So somebody like Ben, who is a friend, who got his start at the Ticket, how much more is he going to help out somebody who does have a solid relationship with him versus the knuckleheads on the Rev and Rep podcast?
It's like...
Go ahead.
It's like the verse of...
Oh, gosh. Here we go. Butchered Bible quotes with Big Damn Gibson.
If he pays attention to the sparrow, how much more...
Yeah, that's it. Right.
If he dresses the lilies of the field, how much more would baseball Jesus pay attention to?
I know. Oh, man.
I know.
Okay, so golly, we're going to get canceled. So... all of that to say,
joke. And that actually is one of his nicknames.
All
it's
of
a
this,
joke, tongue in cheek.
All of this makes
Y'all
sense.
calm down.
And he says in his, sort of welcome to the airwaves of the Freak on Monday.
It is fun making you uncomfortable, though.
That there was this time when he subbed, and that the guys at the other station weren't big fans of it. They weren't big fans of him filling in for a friend of his and some of theirs who had cancer, because it put him against the station that he started. They got upset about that. Now, the Ticket they're a powerhouse in DFW. They're number 7 overall in the Nielsen ratings for our area. They are also a Marconi award-winning station. And on top of that, their nearest competitor in the same area when it comes to specifically sports has half of the listeners that they do. So for them to play like, oh, we're the little guy, like it's this really strange thing to me because it's an admission of the people at the station that the station was never bigger than Mike and that Mike will always be bigger than the station.
Yeah.
And that to me, when he said that on day one, it really stuck out to me that they got upset because he was essentially like doing the right thing that a friend should do, helping out as a free agent, going to help out a buddy of his who had cancer and stepping in that gap.
A lot of what we're reading into or where we're getting this from is an article in the Dallas Morning News.
There was an article that was published on this was Tuesday morning in the Dallas Morning News that was written by, I want to make sure she's got credit here, Sharon Grigsby.
Full credit.
Yeah, full credit to Sharon Grigsby, who says she runs this opinion piece that she is very conflicted about Mike's return to the airwaves. And one of the things that she says here that I'm really bothered by, it says it's awful to watch this longtime leader of the Ticket's tight-knit band of brothers return from retirement to try a land grab on legacy. The article in total is pretty, as far as journalism goes, it's pretty visceral towards Mike, as though he has done something to, one, betray DFW, two, betray the Ticket, and then finally to betray all of the loyal listeners of the Ticket. Mm-hmm. There are some quotes in here from Mike. He's quoted when asked, how do you feel about competing against your former partners for the same listeners? He goes, I don't have a real good answer for that right now. I guess I'm going to have to square it in some way.
Which that feels to me like he's going, I don't know, I'm doing something fun that I want to do.
He's not. Why?
I guess I need to think about it from that perspective.
If you were,
and by the way, this is written from someone attacking their own legacy, right?
Right.
From someone that has no legacy.
So this is one of these things where like you're looking
full credit.
You're looking. Sharon's been a journalist in this area for a long time. She's been a good journalist at the Dallas Morning News.
She's dang wrong on this.
She is. She got this. This is a bad opinion. She asks Mike, how does he feel going up against it? Is he trying to take down the Ticket? That his sights are
Mike,
set on it.
Mike, you're doing something fun. Are you trying to destroy your legacy?
And Mike says, I guess you could look at it that way, but if that's the case, I'm shooting with a BB gun across the moat into the castle that is the Ticket.
Oh, man.
And
great line.
That's really good. Now, they do talk about how Mike got a hero's send-off, and to be fair, that's pretty true after he retired. I think one of the things that happened was they saw the value of the guy when they didn't have him there to lean on anymore, and everybody's scrambling to fix everything because the guy who has been the anchor of the entire station left. Mm-hmm. He said, until 97.1 came along, I was a very happy retiree. Now,
hold on, wait.
Go ahead.
Hold on. We need to go back to the BB gun line because that's so brilliant. And do you think he came up with that on the spot?
Oh, no doubt.
Because he does that stuff all the time.
Right. And it will be really easy for any critic.
That's such a great analogy.
There will be easy for any critic of our show to say, oh, we're just fanboying over Mike. And sure.
Yeah.
But we also have
so what?
We also have this weird thing called objective opinions. And when
I identify as a fangirl.
When we've been in the corporate world for most of our lives. Mm-hmm. This is a normal thing that happens. Right? There are guys that get praised because of the shrewdness of their business transaction. Guys that start companies, sell them, write out their NDAs, and then go right back into the same industry, buy the companies that they previously owned for pennies on the dollar because those people can't run them, build a bigger company, sell it to somebody else, wait a couple of years, and then do the same thing. And everybody looks at them and like, oh, those guys are such geniuses of industry. When a guy who gave so much to all of those people at the Ticket. And that's the thing that I don't understand is that there is no graciousness from the guys that were there. And we'll read some of their quotes here in a minute for him starting everything, giving them the opportunity that they had in order to become somebody. You know, if you listen to the stories, or if you've read the book Full Disclosure, or if you listened on Tuesday afternoon when Mike addressed some of these critics, everything was about how those guys, himself included, they were nobody. And that they created this bunker mentality because they were nobodies. They were the guys that were in the same position as Julie and Mike Soroy and Grubes, that were working because they did something that they loved and were having to hustle day in and day out just to make ends meet, to keep their head above water. And he created something that was cool and awesome. And all of those guys at the station are continuing to benefit from it. It makes sense because it fits within the guy's character that he would repeat that process in order to create something cool and fun and unique and different, so that his buddies at the Ben and Sken show, his friend Julie, his friend Michael Gruber, his friend Mike Soroy, the other guys that are at the show and working on the station would all have that same opportunity to showcase their talent. So all of that stuff, if you're looking at the character of this guy, is super congruent.
I get the temptation maybe to feel betrayed, but
Sure.
I would say any one of his friends that are really upset with him about starting something new after his retirement weren't his friends.
So
This is my opinion. This is my opinion.
I agree, and I'm going to tell a story here in a second, but let's read some of the quotes here. I didn't think it was, when asked why he didn't reach out to the ticket, he says, "I didn't think it was their business." Now, this is, as we have stated before, this is his MO and always has been. If you want Mike to go do something, you're going to have to ask Mike to go do it. If you ask him for help, he will probably be one of the first people to help you if you're in that circle. If you are not, and you're guys like us that are not in the circle, we're not in the second ring of the circle, we're somewhere near, like if you were to shoot at a target and you hit us, you're not getting points.
Hold on. What's smaller than a BB?
Yeah, really. Like that's how far away we are from all this. But here's the thing.
We were a gnat
is
that was spit.
Even,
we were a gnat that was spit by an ogre.
Even when we asked for
Whatever.
help, right? When we came calling, he was like, "You know what? I got the time. I'm happy to do it." This has
He even drove.
This has always been his. Yeah, he drove over a half hour to come here to come be in studio with us because it sounded better and all that stuff. So all of that to say that this idea that he didn't think that it was any of their business, and all that fits with the way that the guy's conducted himself, as far as anybody can tell us, even our friends that are in the industry, for the last 30 years. They're like, "Hey, if you want Mike to come to something, if you want Mike to go do something, you're going to have to call Mike." Mike is not very often going to be like,
And how
"Hey,
is this-
you want
how
to
is
come
this-
over and hang out?"
And how is this groundbreaking news?
I know, but also
you might have to ask for.
why is this like junior high stuff being the things that's thrown around? So we'll
It's dishonest.
we'll
what it is.
continue. Mike said sticking it to the ticket or the owner cumulus wasn't a motivator, but he did feel that he was minimized and marginalized by almost everyone at the station. As a listener, as we have already said, as guys that really started to fade our listening at the end of 2019, agreed. I think there are 3 people on that station that did not continue to minimize Mike's role or marginalize him or just always try to kick the guy whenever they had an opportunity. Donovan Lewis, Dan McDowell, and Norm Hitzkiss. Those guys did not. Now, as far as the on-air talent goes, now you can tell that there were other people that also didn't, like Mike Soroy and Julie Dobbs, because that's who he's working with now. Those are people that he brought along with him into this new endeavor. Mike's
And Shoopy.
former, and Shoopy. Mike's former co-host on the Hardline. Now, this is the second co-host that he had. It says
I'm
Mike.
sure he's got a real brave thing to say.
Yeah, Mike was universally loved at the ticket. We hoisted him on our shoulders in retirement. We invited him to all of our events. We had him on all of our shows as recently as August. He was the heartbeat and the face of the ticket. He chose otherwise and destroyed relationships that had been in existence for 30 years. It's heartbreaking and unconscionable. Are you familiar with the term gaslighting?
Yeah.
Okay, I feel like this is exactly what's happening here. No, we hoisted him on our shoulders in retirement because everybody loved him. This was not like a decision that you
And
guys
also
got to
everyone
make.
was there because of him.
Yeah.
Everyone got their breaks and got...
You invited him to all of your events as though like that was something that you were doing for Mike. You invited him to all of your events because he was the draw.
He's the godfather.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like if the Mavericks were to say, you know what, we invited Dirk to come play in all those games he was at. Like, of course you did. Well, of course you did, because you wanted to win games.
Yeah.
Right? You want people to show up. We invited Mike on our show, not because we did anything special, but because Mike brings listeners and we were interested in talking to him. It's not because, he was doing some like incredible thing. We needed it. We needed content. You had him on your shows as recently as August. That wasn't to help Mike out. So like all of this stuff is being couched as these are the things that we did. Even in retirement, we showed that we loved him.
Hey,
no.
should we be mad at him too? Because he went and started another station without us.
How dare you?
You were on our show.
I can't believe it. Where was our phone call when?
Yeah. It's dishonest. It's intellectually dishonest.
It is intellectually dishonest.
It's gaslighting.
And this idea that it's heartbreaking and unconscionable. If you
it feels
are
like
one
clutching
of the,
pearls because your boyfriend went somewhere else.
It does. And on top of that, it's this whole idea that like it's heartbreaking and unconscionable
look Corby,
that the person
take a hot
that
shower,
the person that I
cry it out,
that I minimalized and marginalized, that I'm now going to say that I love. It's heartbreaking and unconscionable that they went and did something else. No, it isn't.
Shut up.
No, it isn't. And it's exactly, I think that the whole idea that that's what it is, that it is, it's the ex-girlfriend that's like, I can't believe you're dating somebody else. What am I supposed to do? You're just upset that I don't love you anymore.
You just yelled at me while I was here for 9 years.
And so again, like this makes this whole thing feel really awkward. There's a quote here, and it does say, and while the ticket is a formidable powerhouse, and in full disclosure, partners with the Dallas Morning News to produce the Sports Day Talk app. We don't confuse this with a David and Goliath fight. Okay, so Mike's starting a brand new station just because they have a big signal. She says we shouldn't confuse this with a David and Goliath fight. All right.
Okay.
Cool.
I don't think Mike cares one bit about most of this. I think he actually addressed it. Was it yesterday?
Yeah, he did address it yesterday on the air, and he said the same things that we're saying, like they never called.
I'm sure that he's like, I just wanted to do something fun, you guys. Like it has nothing to do with you.
And there was a pretty powerful statement that was said there that like, hey, if they would have approached you, would you have done anything with them? And he said, no.
Yeah.
That the amount of restrictions and things that would have been put on him, like if he wanted to do something else, for him to go to them and say, hey, I want to be back on the air, they're going to tell him how his show can run, what he can and can't do, what he can and can't talk about, what hours he's going to get to be on the air, who's he's going to be with.
And now he's got some of his best buddies from the ticket.
Right.
He can do whatever he wants.
Who would want to go back to a situation that there's a reason that you leave a place. Especially a place that you founded, that you've been at for years and years. There's a reason that you leave. And it's not so that a couple of years later you can be like, hey, I'm bored. I'd like to come back. What do you guys think? Do you have a spot for me? No. It's not. One, it's not exciting. And he did say that it wouldn't have been anything exciting or fun. And that's what he wants to do. Can't blame you. But also, why would you go back to a place that you felt minimized and marginalized at?
Go on a new adventure. That's what he's doing.
So that's exactly what he's doing. The idea that he's destroying...
Jeff, shut up, Corby.
The idea that he's destroying 30 years of relationships is ridiculous. And here's the part, I think, more than anything, that really stood out to me in this article. It said that Saturday night dinner conversations in the 1990s meant the retelling of the most absurd ticket moments of the week. The musers were the soundtrack of carpooling my two sons to each day. Decades later, a surefire way to bond with a new acquaintance to ask if he or she was a P1. The idea that in the 1990s, the absurd moments of the ticket were the things that we talked about is very, very, very true. 22 years later, it is not. the magic that the ticket had in the 90s was something that was incredible. What they had in the early 2000s.
How many years have we heard other listeners and friends in the Metroplex just complain about the ticket? It's gone.
That it's not the same.
All politics.
All
it's just
of this stuff.
complaining. It's nothing. It's not fun.
And so what's happened?
They used to get kicked out of Rangers training camp for
But like all of this stuff, and
Great.
The thing is that there was a heavy restructuring that happened in the middle 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
Things, they still owned the airwaves. Like without a doubt, they owned the airwaves. In the demographic of men like 18 to 35, nobody in DFW pulls the numbers that the ticket does, period. This was the station that I listened to whenever I was a missionary, when I traveled internationally, when I was in different time zones. This was my taste of home, is that I would turn on the musers in the afternoon and I would catch the hard line in the wee hours of the morning whenever I was getting up, because the schedule, the time difference was so crazy. But that was
actually
then.
Sounds pretty awesome, waking up to the hard line.
Yeah, but that was then and this is now.
Yeah.
And the primary difference is that things have changed. That there has been something within the ticket that has fostered enough bad feelings, we'll say, without trying to put anything else on there, that you lost Mike, you lost Mike Rhyner, you lost Mike Soroy, you lost Danny Bayless, and you lost Jeremy Moran.
Shoopy.
Years earlier, you lost Grubes.
Yeah.
There was a point in time when you lost Ben and Skin. You lost Julie Dobbs. Instead of pointing the finger at all of these people that are doing something new, maybe this is one of those times like what we've experienced in our businesses. It is...
Pivot.
It's a tremendous blow to the ego when someone that you have mentored and trained and invested in leaves to do what you trained them to do at another place. And we've both experienced that. It is part of business. It's part of what happens not just in the nonprofit world or in the corporate world. It's part of what happens in the sports world. It's part of what happens in Texas high school football. Whenever a coach really invests into a kid and then he's got an opportunity because there's a graduating senior at a school down the road that gets a lot more TV time than they do, where mom and dad uproot the family and move. It happens all the time. And everybody just deals with it.
It happened in Little Giants.
It happened in the Little Giants.
What was that guy's name? That big kid
But
came
it's
in to
also
play for Rick Moranis.
Spike.
Yeah, the wrong brother.
But it's also what happens in the sports that these guys talk about day in and day out. And when people get upset about it, they tell them
he carried a whole
that's
refrigerator
just
by himself.
Life.
I'm done with Little Giants.
LeBron left the Cavaliers and went to Miami, and then when he went back to Cleveland, and now that he's at LA, everybody just says, this is the new way that things happen. It's his choice. You just got to deal with it as the fan. And for those of us who are here right now, we have had to deal with it in our own personal and corporate lives because it's just a thing that happens. And if somebody comes and poaches somebody from you, then you don't get upset as a mature person and say, you know what, this organization poached you from me. I'm going to be upset with that person forever. If they had more money, if they had better opportunity, let them go with grace and wish them well. And the best thing that the guys at the ticket could have done is to say, hey, you know what? I hope the best for Mike.
Mm-hmm. We welcome the competition. He's given us opportunities. We look forward to what he's going to do. We might even try to make a move to get him back in the future. And there's a whole lot of positive things.
Any of those things that could have happened.
Dear friend, we're glad he's got something new going on. We're going to try to crush him in the ratings, but all the competition.
All
would
of
be
that
fine.
stuff. Yeah.
But instead they made it
and instead they're making it appear
like the corporate stooges, the elite broadcasters need to be taken down, and that's why we're coming out. That's why we're coming out as generals in the Glen Nation Army in support of our friend in this revolution.
They had the opportunity to do whatever they wanted to do.
He's kind of our friend.
Yeah.
I want to call him my friend.
Yes.
Okay. I want him to be my friend.
But we want him, and we need to get Mike Soroy on the show because he's the only one of the three blind
as-
mics we
as-
haven't had on.
Yeah, as
By
I
the way, their
said.
show is actually called The Downbeat. But the whole thing is that what we're building up to is that there was this opportunity for them to do something cool and classy that could have made the listeners in DFW feel like they had the ability to go do whatever they wanted and to enjoy themselves. And instead, they tried to make it a competition. A competition by saying, hey, you know what? We are the biggest show in town, and I can't believe that you left us.
Yeah,
that it is that dejected ex-girlfriend feeling.
Again, it just feels like clutching pearls, and it's just so unattractive for a sports station full of men, overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
For them to behave like that, come on.
Yeah, it is. And she's right. It's not a David versus Goliath thing because Goliath didn't have a chip on his shoulder whenever David came out into the battlefield and said, I don't think you take me seriously. How dare you come out here like that? Yeah. No, it's not like that at all. And to be fair and to be honest,
if Goliath was just sitting around his campfire talking with his friends.
Yeah, to be fair and to be honest, if you look at what happened, Mike retired, he wrote out his NDA, and now he's getting to do the next fun thing. So from the Reverend and the Reprobate, for the guys on the downbeat, for Mike Soroy, Mike Rhyner, and Mike Tweet Gruber, best of luck, guys. For Ben and Skin, for Julie Dobbs, for all the guys over at the Freak 97.1, good luck. And
this has been an argument in defense of the Freak, Glen Nation, the downbeat, the other shows there, but the Freak in general, not that they needed it.
Yes, not that they needed it. That's correct.
This is defense of them, not that they needed it. But
yeah.
But we did not like that article.
It's the Speakeasy, the Ben and Skin show, and
the Speakeasy thing is
and the
kind of
downbeat.
odd. I can't decide if I like it or not. I mean, the name. I'm just talking about the name.
The
only.
name? Yeah.
They say it's Speakeasy and it's password protected, which is kind of funny.
It is funny. Did you know the password?
No one knows the password.
Oh, I know it.
How?
All that and next. No. Good luck. Best of luck to the guys. Yeah. Best of luck to the guys over at the Freak. And I think our normal sign off no longer has a place on this show. We no longer care if you guys have good and get give, but we do care
want you to Glen Nation
that you
what's a good sign off now?
stay hard and keep jamming. We'll see ya.
Jam. All right. It was one of our more serious ones.
Sort of.
There's somebody. Oh, I want to give him credit. There it is. It's Reverend and Reprobate show. Which is,
yes,
my
now
dudes.
him I know.
You know we've both been interviewed by him, Shoopy.
Really?
Yes, we have.
Yeah.
They do a podcast.
okay.
They're pretty good people.
Excellent people.
Well, as Fake Nat Maines talked about his father leaving this earthly plane, the Reverend Baby, listening to day one of the Downbeat on 97.1 The Freak. Great to hear the genius of Tweet Grubes back on the air, and he is holding a fresh babby. I don't know if that's a newborn today
No, that is.
or what.
And I don't know if about today, but it's recent.
Both ends of the spectrum represented there.